Well, this is an interesting day here at Primetime Local News, and I'm happy to be joined by someone who we have spoken to recently, Dr. Bruce Olav Solheim. Bruce, we're talking today about UFOs, a report that was
Yeah.
released by the U.S. government. We spoke to you before about your book, and we know your background with UFOs and with aliens, and something you've been following for a long time. You're an
Yeah.
author, you are a professor as well, so you know your stuff when it comes to this. So let's talk about this report. I have to say, from what I've seen, it seemed a little bit disappointing. I know that you probably, being an insider, kind of expected this, but I think the general public was hoping for more.
Well, you're right, Stacy. People, I think a lot of people, especially in the UFO community, but in general, there was a lot of interest. Every national news here in the States, and I'm sure up in Canada too, were covering this. And it was even on 60 Minutes, which is the premier news show on the weekend here in the States. And everybody, probably thought there's going to be something to bite into, but it just really wasn't on the surface. Now, if you kind of read between the lines, there's some interesting things that I thought I could mention, but just on the surface, it's only 7 pages long, and there's 2 appendix pages that don't really tell you anything. But there's some interesting things about it. And well, one thing, they kind of released the information ahead of time, which I think had the effect of taking the air out of the tires, because it was a little bit too hot of an issue, and the government doesn't like that when people get too excited, so they want to calm them down. So they kind of I think snuck some stuff into the press early, and then when it came out, it was kind of like anticlimactic, and it wasn't very exciting. There's a lot of I've read it many times, and it's just a bunch of government kind of talk, so it's not juicy at all. But that being said, they did mention threat many, many times. And I think I forgot how many times, 7, 8, 9 times. So obviously they're looking at it from a threat scenario, a threat to our country and national security, or, global security, I guess. And the other really interesting thing that I think is kind of a giveaway is when they start talking about signatures intelligence. And that might be something that slipped through. Maybe people didn't recognize the importance of that, but what they're talking about is what they have observed, what these qualified observers, these military pilots, have seen are no heat signatures, nothing that indicates any system of propulsion, some kind of cloaking, the ability to disappear and reappear. I mean, that's what they're talking about with signatures. And I think that's incredibly remarkable, and does reveal that there is something very, very non-terrestrial about these things. And it's funny to me when they put these categories. We think it's either going to be a natural anomaly, or it's going to be maybe an adversarial country that's doing these things. And the last, and they don't mention aliens at all, or extraterrestrials, but the last category that they said it could be, because they said they don't know what it is, was other. And that's like a big question. What do they mean by other? That's begging the question. In other words, it doesn't provide answers. It just provides a lot more questions. And the next report's supposed to come out September 23rd. And I'm thinking what's going to happen to Congress. And I'm thinking what's going to happen is that they're hoping, which is already happening, the news cycle is gone. They're not covering it at all now. It's just like nothing, at least here. And they're on to the Kardashians or whatever else they're obsessed with at the moment. And so I think that, it's going to take a grassroots movement of people to just say, hey, just tell us what you know.
Well, Bruce, I know that you talked about people, you have to stay on this subject to try and get the information out, but we all know how governments work, unfortunately. Do you think that maybe somebody might come out eventually and say, well, okay, you need to know this, people need to be aware of this? Or do you think this is going to be fighting tooth and nail, even come September, to get more information other than, I saw the term in the report, unexplained for everything? Well, we know that a lot of this is unexplained. We want the explanation, right? So do you think we will get to the depths of the information that is available?
I think more will come out. It'll probably be from people leaking information, whistleblowers, that kind of a thing, as the momentum builds. But it has to build from the bottom. You can't wait. That's why I think last time we talked about disclosure versus what I believe to be revelation. That comes from the people, what they believe and what they want to hear. It's not like we're sitting here waiting, I hope they tell us what the truth is. We already know what the truth is, either by experience, in my case, or by just people people are smart. They're generally pretty smart. They're intuitive. They're saying, wait a second, that doesn't sound right. What are they talking about? Other. It's probably other, but they're not telling us what other is. So, I think sometimes the government underestimates our ability, governments in general, underestimate our ability to handle the truth. And I think we can handle the truth. Some people say it'll be a threat to people's spirituality and traditional religions and stuff. I think that is exactly where it needs to reside, is people need to realize that we're not alone. And that's
Well,
going to take a broader view.
Bruce, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. And I hope that as we go along and as information either comes out or doesn't come out, that we can go back to you and rely on the knowledge that you have and from your insider community to maybe help explain to us a little bit more some of the things that we're not hearing about that you might actually hear about. So thank you for taking the time to speak to us once again. And we look forward to talking to you again sometime in the future.
Thank you, Stacy. It was always a pleasure.